Welcome to Running in the 70s, where we interview, meet, and get to know athletes of all kind who were running in the 70s. I'm your host, Matthew Kleinowski.
Today on the podcast, we're in Virginia with a 1970s runner and athlete, someone who's still competing today. We'll find out about that. A Western Pennsylvania runner. Please welcome on the podcast today, Peggy Ruffennach Fees.
And I will tell you, I'm not still competing.
Oh, I thought you were rowing.
Oh, I am rowing. How'd you know that?
I drink all beverages and I know things.
Oh, then we can talk about.
Welcome, Peggy.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Let's introduce you to everyone with your competition or running origin story. When, where, and why did you get into competing and running?
I got into running and competing in junior high in Pennsylvania. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, South Hills area, grew up in Bridgeville, PA. I started running in junior high. My junior high school did not have a track. We practiced in the hallways and a loop around the neighborhood for my 7th grade year. I guess I got into running too because growing up, we were always racing in the neighborhood with friends and my brothers and sisters. I realized I was pretty quick and I enjoyed it. Junior high, my 8th grade year, we moved up to the old high school and we did have a cinder track then. I was just learning about running in terms of starting blocks and things. I was definitely a sprinter. Tried long jump. That was okay, but that didn't last very long. And then I continued to run in high school and I was a sprinter and hurdler.
What quality of coaching did you have?
I was very blessed with good coaches all through my career of running. In junior high, we had Mrs. Villani. She was the PE coach and she was great. Very encouraging to her young women, very positive, knew the sport. In high school, my coach was Bruce Harkowitz, and he also was very positive. Both of my coaches balanced hard work and fun because it was definitely a social outlet for me personally. I really enjoyed the dynamics of being on a team. And my coach, Mr. Harkowitz, he was funny too, because back in the day, I don't think a lot of women or young girls spend time in the weight room, but he knew about weight training. And I don't know if you remember the old Nautilus equipment places. Yeah. Okay. He took myself and one other teammate to a Nautilus gym and taught us how to lift weights. That became part of our training. I just remember it being novel because they actually put us in their brochure.
The gym.
Yeah. Young women doing weight training. So that was an early part of my training in high school and definitely had fun. We worked hard. That's probably when I took up hurdling. I did the 100-meter hurdles and still was a sprinter at the time.
What awareness did you have of the sport? Were you paying attention to the sport beyond your team and competition, the world or the boys' teams or anything like that?
I would say no to being aware out there. There wasn't a lot of talk about competing in colleges or beyond, nothing like that. We were very focused in on just a high school team. The boys' team, they were always supportive. We had that camaraderie. We practiced on the same track. That part was great. But beyond the high school team per se, no. We were always trying to qualify for states. But even then, that wasn't always feasible.
Did you see a change in either your performance or your body with the weight training? Did it make a difference to you?
I think it did. I definitely think, we weren't looking to bulk up or anything, but we were looking for strength. So I do think that was helpful. We did that in college also. and afterwards. I still think it's important now as an adult, as I get older. I wouldn't say it was a huge part of our training, but it was definitely introduced to us.
What successes did you have, and what are your fondest memories of competition results?
In high school, I would say my fondest memory was I did qualify for states in the 400 meters. I think my coach, he had the foresight to know that was a good event for myself. I didn't really run it open until my senior year, and I qualified and I finished fourth in the state in AAA. That was my best accomplishment, and it was great. It was everything you wanted it to be. You were a senior, it was your state meet, you finished fourth. It was a nice way to end your high school career.
And how were you as a student academically?
I was a good student. I was in the National Honor Society. I wanted to go to college. Originally, I was going to be a teacher for hearing impaired and deaf students. There was a lot of encouragement from counselors and teachers to pursue college. When I was thinking about college, though, I was really only thinking about it in terms of the academics.
Why did you have an interest in hearing impaired and deaf?
I always had an interest in children, working with children. I'm not really sure where the hearing impairment specifically came from, but I was interested in sign language, and I did take a sign language class. So I think that was the combination. That's why I wanted to do it.
What about your identity as an athlete? You're all state, that's the top as it goes. And your senior year, several years now as a runner, you weren't thinking beyond high school, really. But what was your identity as a student, as a future teacher, as a athlete? What was it?
It's funny because there wasn't any recruiting going on. I remember that they did an article on me that you accomplished this, but nobody was recruiting. Nobody was calling you up and saying, "Are you going to run for us?" kind of thing. In my mind, I was going to college to pursue a career. I didn't really think beyond that per se. One of the questions you asked me in the beginning was, did I think about that globally or beyond my high school? And not really. I think as a runner, I went further than I had anticipated that I would go. I attribute that to great coaching and hard work, competitive spirit, determination, but I really wasn't thinking about that for college.
How'd you decide where to go to college?
That was again driven by my major. Someone told me you should get your bachelor's degree in speech and hearing. I knew there were two colleges. Penn State was very good for that major, and so was IUP. I was familiar with IUP because my neighbors went to IUP and I had visited them in college and I liked the campus. Didn't have a lot of desire to go to Penn State, thought it was too big. Didn't even apply. So IUP was the only one I applied to.
You arrived at IUP. How did you adjust, and when did you find out about the athletic opportunities for women there?
People, of course, asked me when I went to college, "Are you going to run?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'll see." I set up a meeting with Coach Fry and I went to his office to find out about track at IUP. Again, they weren't really recruiting back then, right? So he asked me what I did and I told him, explained my track career. And I think I said two things that really piqued his interest. I could run a 400 meters and I could hurdle. And so in his mind, he heard intermediate hurdles. I still hadn't made a decision, but he told me I should start running. Now, as a sprinter, I didn't start working out until it was track season. You don't train ahead of time. You just trained when it was track season. So I really did not start to run. That was the end of our meeting. But in my dorm room, I got a very funny phone call. You only had your phone in the dorm room. I answered the phone and the person on the other line didn't identify themselves. So I did not know who I was talking to. He said, "This is your conscience speaking. Have you started to run yet?" And I was like, "No." And he said, you need to be at the field house today at 4 o'clock to meet Sheila and Carol, and you're going to go on a run with them. And I went. And Carol and Sheila were long distance runners, and they took me on a 6-mile run in the snow, which was, in my mind, crazy.
First time you had run that far?
I am quite sure it was. I did cross country in high school a little bit, but our team was very small and I did not cross country. And so in my mind, in high school, cross country is not even in my repertoire.
How'd you feel after 6 miles in the snow?
Tired, really tired. My freshman year, joining the track team, it gave me that social piece. When you go to college and you're new on campus and you're trying to figure it out, you meet your people in the dorms. And I was lucky. I met great people in the dorms and I had a great roommate. But I think when I met the people on the track teams and I was running and we were doing that, that's when I really felt like I found my place.
How big was the track team? It was early on. The cross country team had just started as a club and made it to a varsity sport. How big was the track team? Was there people in every event?
I want to say yes, but I think we were still probably building the team. And I didn't even realize that we were still building the team. Back then, if you wanted to be on the team, you were on the team. And coach encouraged everybody. He was great that way. If you were willing to come and practice and participate, he was willing to have you. And he worked with you. Doc Raymore, too, worked with me as a hurdler. I think we were still building the team, but everybody, again, we were a close unit in our school.
Yeah. So were other people coming in? Where did you fit as a trained athlete? Were other people lifting weights? Was that something you started? How did that all work? Where you saw how you compared to other people in that background?
I think, again, it was part of our training. I don't ever remember all of us going in there to train together with weights. Some of that could have been, there was one weight room and I'm sure the guys' sports were in there more than us. As far as being an athlete, I think there were definitely people on the team that had been running for years too, definitely had more experience in some of the distance and training. I think that niche that coach put me in as an intermediate hurdler filled something that they needed for the team at the time. And so we ran as many events as they would let you participate in.
Oh, so what year was your freshman year?
Let's see, that would have been, I graduated in high school from 78, so that would have been the spring of 79.
How did you do? How was your first season?
I won states for the intermediate hurdles, and I did that for 3 years in a row. Then I didn't run the intermediate hurdles anymore after that. I picked up some very bad habits in my hurdles, and they were hard to break. And coach, again, I had these coaches that saw things in me that needed to change in terms of moving up in distances. Again, I was a sprinter, but I wasn't going to set any pace or records in the shorter distances. And so coach was definitely moving me up towards the 800 meters, and which I actually thought was crazy again, because then I had to go around 2 laps. That was, in my mind, far. But again, it was a very good call on his part, and that ended up being my best event.
Let's talk about those first 3 years. You state champion and the conference champion in 400-meter hurdles.
Right.
When did you get involved cross country?
I guess I probably started in cross country my sophomore year, reluctantly. But again, I knew both of my coaches, high school and college, they wanted you to run cross country to help your track season. I did not consider myself a distance runner. So my first practice with cross country was very eye-opening. We met at the field house and we had to run out to the golf course. The golf course is 3 miles from campus. We did our stretching and then we all stood up. coach was with us, to run out to the golf course. And they set a pace that I had never run in my sport for 3
That's
miles.
in the warm up, just getting to the training. Yeah.
And I didn't realize when we got to the golf course, that was going to be the start of our workout, because that was interval training for the next 3 miles across the course. Then when we finished that, we had to run back to campus. And I can just remember saying, you all just go ahead, I'll get there eventually. And that was my first cross country practice.
How was school going then? And your
Um,
choice of major, and how did all that meet your expectations or not?
My expectations, I think there's always a learning curve when you go to college, because the way that the information is given to you, it's a lot more information in terms of studying for a test or something like that. But I had excellent professors for my major. Can't say enough about them. And I was doing okay. I was making good grades. I think, again, after my freshman year, you kind of get used to how the information is given and study habits and things change. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed my major. I enjoyed my professors. They were very good. And actually, through my whole college career, they were supportive of my running too, because I got to stay on campus for my student teaching and things. I got to stay in Indiana. And I got to stay in Indiana because I was on the team. A lot of people had to go off campus to do their student teaching, and I got to stay. I really did feel like there was a lot of cooperation between my professors and the coaches. That was
Nice.
fortunate.
It wasn't a scholarship program. Were there any benefits of being an athlete at school?
I didn't have any scholarship. No, at the time. I ran because I wanted to be on the team.
Let's talk about teammates. Who were the people that you connected with? You were successful right away as a state champion your first season, but were there people who motivated you, mentored you, you looked up to, apart from just forming friendships with?
Definitely the people that were older than me, Sheila, Fleming, Carol, Dana, even some of the men on the team that were older, they were very good about mentoring and being there and being supportive. I think we had a lot of different types of people on the team, and I did definitely go to them in terms of cross country. Like, they knew how to do distance running. They knew pace. As a sprinter, I didn't know any of that. But yeah, the friendships that you formed on the team, some of them last a lifetime. And even the younger people, the younger teammates that came in, you were close to them for a period of time too.
IUP men will always talk about the cross country house, whether they lived there or just went there socially. The women didn't have a team house or anything. The women were spread all over campus, right?
Yeah, pretty much. One year when we had a house, it never became a women's cross country house. We just had a variety of, some of us were runners and some weren't, but that was a problem. And we didn't hold big parties like the men's cross country team. We always went to the guy's house for the parties.
Let's talk about your career then in cross country for 3 years. How did that go, and how did you progress, and what did you accomplish?
It went fine. I was on the team. I definitely wasn't one of their top finishers. I was in the mix, but I definitely wasn't the top finishers. And part of that too, you were supposed to train over the summer. I was not always consistent with that, I have to admit. I didn't really get consistent with that till right before my senior year. It was probably the summer that I trained the most. But I did understand how it helped for your track season. And again, you had that camaraderie and social aspect, which was very motivating in and of itself. We had fun.
Let's talk about your senior track season and your identity. You were a hurdler. You were a sprinter. Did you convert willingly to middle distance? And how did your as a cross country runner for several years, not the star on the team. How'd you feel about that and how did it go?
When I came back my senior year for cross country, because I had trained, I actually was one of their top finishers then. So that was great to see. I felt like I finally learned how to run cross country. I won't say that I did the 800 willingly, but I feel like my time kept improving over my junior year and into my senior year. I also ran with a very good friend of mine who was an 800 meter, and she was younger, Michelle Brown, and she and I trained a lot together. I saw the success, and of course, when you're successful, that motivates you to continue to do it. I learned to enjoy and really love the 800 meters.
When did you start to have expectations of yourself in that event for success and how did that end up?
Again, you saw a decrease in your time. I think over time, I ran 2 minutes 30, then I was running 2 minutes 20 something. And Coach Fry was always good about keeping those splits in your relays. 2:11. Michelle and I really fed off of each other. She was more experienced in the 800 meters, and she and I both ran it my senior year for states, and she actually won that day. I was second, but it was great because we were working so closely together at the time. I was happy for both of us.
Right. So you had 4 all-state finishes and similar to high school, good way to finish your career. What did you think of your possibilities and running post university? Was that on your radar?
Not until we went to nationals and I was All American in the 800, and our 4x800 relay was also All American. And that was Sally Johnson and Mercedes O'Connor, Michelle Brown, and myself. Again, I thought, okay, this is great going out at my college season. And I remember coming home and Coach Fry's, I'm like, so what are you doing? Coach goes, you try to qualify for the Olympic trials. That was probably the very first time that was ever mentioned in my life or any time I ever even thought about it. So I actually stayed in Indiana again, even though I had finished my bachelor's degree. I took a year off of school and worked in the schools up there as a substitute, as a speech therapist. So I was still able to train with the team. I would go to work and then I'd come home and go to practice. And then I ran open meets.
What was the target? What was the goal and the time frame that you said, okay, if I'm going to do this is what I need to do, what I need to accomplish on the way?
You were trying to qualify for 1984. So I graduated in 82. You had 1983 and into the track season of 1984 to qualify. At the time, I had run 2:08 something, and you needed to run 2:05. And Coach, he definitely had the more worldly view as a runner himself, and even for the people that he coached. I think he was really good at not overwhelming people. I think he just gave you the information that you needed at the time. And he continued to coach. I continued to run. My time came down. Coach Wright even got me sponsored. I don't know if you remember the company Kangaroo
Sure.
Company. I was sponsored by Kangaroo a little bit for a while. He actually got me. The biggest race I probably ran in was the Prefontaine Classic. I don't even know how Coach got me into that. That was a bit intimidating, I have to say. But I ran my fastest time there, which was 2:06, and still needed 2:05. So I was working towards that at the beginning of my spring season of 1984.
Kangaroo would buy you plane tickets occasionally and send you gear?
Yeah, they definitely gave me gear. I'm sure they did the tickets and things. Again, Coach handled all of that. I just showed up. And he went with me. It was just he and I out in Oregon at the time. But yeah,
So 2:05 is the goal line and you ran 2:06. How did you handle that?
again, I think I was evolving as I learned more about what was out there. Hindsight, I think about that time frame. I never, as a runner, thought about the Olympic trials. I did not. I think for me, I knew I was a good runner. I enjoyed being on a team. I knew we had fun. The hard work and fun were always balanced. Great experiences, met great people. When I started to run, when I was practicing for track, all the times you run in practices, you have to hit times in practice that you never hit before because you're trying to get ready for that race and trying to improve on those times. So I do remember that it was hard. It was hard. It came to a very abrupt end because I pulled the plantar fasciitis muscle in my left foot in practice early on before I really even entered races that season. And that sort of curtailed the running for 1984. So I didn't run anymore. And then I finished my master's degree in speech pathology at IUP in the summer of 84. I came to school to have the career that I wanted. And so with all that had come, I graduated and I thought, okay, it's time for me to get my job. I've been doing this for 6 years. And I moved away from Pennsylvania. So
Well, let's look at it through the fairy tale lens. You went to school for the career you wanted. You overachieved, state champion, All American. You almost made it to the Olympic trials, competed on the national stage, and relationship. There's a runner that you met in college.
oh, yes. I met Larry Fees. We got married in 1985. He was a year behind me in school. He likes to say that I'm older than he is, only by 6 months. We were friends on the teams for his freshman, sophomore, junior year. We started dating my senior year and we dated all through. And even after I left and moved away. Yeah. I think when I was listening to Dana's podcast, there was definitely some of us that dated the guys on the team and some of us married them. A couple of us did. And still married.
So you married a runner, you married a competitor. Did Larry compete after that time?
He did. Larry was a distance runner. And so he definitely continued his running. After college, he ran marathons. He got into biking too, not racing, but he did do race in South Carolina, race to Mount Mitchell. And he did that. And he actually continued his running and working out all through his adult life.
How did you adjust to the end of competitive running? You obviously were fit and had a foot injury. So how did you adjust to the end of the spotlight? I know you have a very healthy attitude of, okay, I did my 6 years. Now it's time to be the adult and with the job. But how did you feel about the end of your career?
Of course, I was disappointed. And I know that I struggled to try to get back to running that spring. I know that coach was not very optimistic. I think he knew more than I knew about that. We tried therapy and the swelling. It wasn't just a strain. It was a pop. I was hobbling around on crutches and stuff and a cane. It was disappointing because I think I would have liked to see if it was possible. I was very close, but in my mind, I always did both. And I just had to say it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be. I had so much success as a runner. I don't really feel like I failed because I didn't get to try and accomplish that. I was always grateful for the coaches that I had, for the teammates that I had, the relationships that we formed. Those relationships, you can call those teammates up now this many years later, and you are just transported back to that time. It is such a formative time in your life. You're living on campus with them. You're together all the time. You still have that years later. I think perhaps as a runner, if I would have had that view myself, I want to go to the Olympic trials. I want to go to try to qualify for Olympics. Maybe it would have felt different to me, but it was something that the coach says, this is the next step. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Hindsight's 2020, reframe things and say, well, I wonder if I had a good run.
You did. You did. I think it was a great career. How did you adjust to not competing? Forget about accomplishments. A lot of us have developed a love of competition, regardless of win or lose.
I think one of the things I moved away from Pennsylvania right after college. And so I was in a new place, new city, new job, lots of new things to learn. And I didn't have a team anymore and a coach. I didn't have a team to go run with. And for me personally, I enjoyed a lot of that. That was a big factor for me socially, the relationships and being a part of a team. So I didn't really see myself necessarily going into distance running. I did distance running, but it wasn't my heart for competition. Mine was more the track. And so I didn't have that anymore. And so I didn't compete. I did some road races probably. I do think that a lot of people, including my husband, probably was like, you stopped? And I was like, yes, I did.
Honestly, for a lot of people in the sport from that era, there is a much more traumatic end. A lot of people do end with injury or decreasing performance. You didn't really go through that. Apart from the injury, you ended on top. A lot of people will say, I hung on too long and I had to go through a passage to figure out how to replace that thrill, that spotlight. Let's talk about your discovery of rowing. How does that activity in terms of competition success, being part of a team compare?
That is a very new endeavor, very new, like last month. The crewing, the rowing, I've talked about it for years. Larry and I lived in Fairfax, Virginia, so it's not necessarily near the water. When I saw people doing it out on the water, it always looked so peaceful and nice. That's about all I knew of. That was my image. So when we moved to Richmond, we're only 15 minutes from the James River right now. I knew about a class that you could take to learn to crew. So I finally signed up for it, and we met 3 times a week, 2 hours each time, and they were going to teach you how to crew an 8-person boat. I found out it's very hard work, but great exercise. Overall body fitness. Interval training was part of it, right? So in a lot of ways, I thought, wow, this sounds all familiar. I feel like I'm doing running on the river. I didn't know when I signed up for the class that they were going to do a regatta and you were going to row in a race. I did not know that at the time. But it was a sprint, which was good. It was just 1,000 meters. And I could have opted out, but I thought, you've come this far. You've always wanted to do this. Go ahead. And we were in the beginner's race. So we were only competing with the beginners that took the class. And it was all mixed, guys, girls, all ages. Yeah, I entered the race and it was so close to a running race. They taught you how to go out fast. Then you have to get out. Then you have to settle into your pace. Then you have to hit it 3/4 of the race. And then at the end, you sprint. I'm like, okay, it's 1,000 meters. I know how to do this. And yeah, I did it and our boat won. So that was very fun. And I'll see if I continue to do that. I felt like I was at least getting back to a little more of my athletic self in that. by doing that.
You weren't driven to compete or run individually anymore. Now you're part of a team. You had been part of a relay. How does the teamwork feel and the teamwork of competition? It's not even passing off a baton. The team cooperates in that.
Right.
Is that how did you relate to that? Were your teammates in the category of having that athletic background of training, of racing that you did?
I'm assuming some of them did. Again, it was all ages. Definitely most of them were younger than me, but some people dropped out of the class when they found out we were all beginner rowers. From that perspective, everybody was starting on the same page. I think there was one girl that had done some rowing in college. As a team member on the boat, you just didn't want to mess up. And it was definitely a sprint and definitely a race. So from a cardiovascular, it was definitely a workout. And I'm glad it was only 1,000 meters at the time. But definitely the people looked fit. We only had 6 guys. Actually, it was all women, except for there were 6 men. And we had 3 in each boat because we had 2 boats that competed with another boat. So from that point, you just didn't want to mess it up for the other people. And in rowing, that can be hard because there's a thing called catching a crab. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Yeah, I know.
yeah, catching a crab means that your oar gets stuck in the water and you cannot pull that oar out. It comes right back at you and you have to go underneath, lay flat in the boat and let the oar pass over you. And it can knock you out of the boat. So my goal always was I want to stay in the boat and I don't want to get a crab. And I did stay close to the person.
I don't know if you can set a lower bar as a goal when you're
Yeah.
rowing, but that's a good one. It's a very important, but I'm not sure there's a lower bar.
As a beginner, that was I did not want to end up in the water. And I definitely did not want to mess up the rest of the people. This was their race. They had us sit in all different places in the boat, but I definitely sat on the port side in number 6 seat because the 8th person is the one who sets the pace. I just wanted to be able to see what the 8th seat was doing. That's the only person I wanted to try to follow. And that was helpful too, because I didn't want to be too far away from that. So we put on a very good sprint at the end and passed the boat and won because we weren't winning most of the race. They also say in rowing, your legs are more important than your arms. I always knew that my legs are much stronger than my arms. So that was another reason I knew I could do it. But yeah, it was fun. It was something I've wanted to do for years. I've talked about it forever. We'll see where it goes.
It's been fun talking with you, getting to know you, and thinking back on all those times. And there are lots of people who came into themselves and found your career, found life partners in that time. So it's a great period, influential on us. Do you ever talk about running and your career? Does it ever come up in your life? How much do you talk about it or think about it?
It definitely came up in my life when I was inducted into the Hall of Fame. That was a big moment. My family, my children, my in-law, everybody came to IUP for that. It was wonderful. I tell people, sometimes new people, when people talk about what they did, and I used to say I was a runner. I don't go into a lot of detail unless I would ask. Sometimes people will ask you specific questions, and then I'll give them more information. My running, that was 1984. And I didn't compete in running after that. It's part of me. But yeah, when you meet new people, it just depends on the conversation, I think, how curious people are. I did think of who I was going to do a shout out to. Bob Costello. He actually organized those baseball games at the Pittsburgh Cards, and we went back to those. And that actually helped us recreate or get back in touch with people we lost touch with, because we lost touch with people when we moved out of state. And we've reconnected with some of those people from IUP as adults, and it's been great. Definitely. It was Abbott's. That was wonderful that he organizes those. So that was my other shout out to Abbott.
Cool.
What do you remember about the Hall of Fame induction?
I remember that it was a great honor, another event in my life that I wasn't anticipating. It came as a wonderful surprise. I remember getting the envelope, and at first I didn't even open it for a couple of days. I wasn't even really sure what it was. Yeah, it was wonderful to have my family all come in for it and have my children there and have Larry and I be there together. Our parents all came. The head of my department from speech and language, Dr. Turton, came. It was a wonderful event. We went to the game that night, the football game, and they announced everybody. And we had it out at the country club where we used to run. And so, yeah, it was really nice. It was really great. And we had to write about our experiences. And I guess I do have to do a shout out to Mrs. Fry, Coach's wife. I look back at our time and how much time Coach Fry dedicated to all of us, not only as track members, but on personal levels. Coach was always there for us. He had a great way of, he wasn't pushy, he was supportive. He helped you where you needed it. He just had a great way of helping people. And Mrs. Fry gave up so much of their time together. He was with us every day for practice. He went on meets with us. She shared her husband with all of us. And I never heard Mrs. Fry ever complain about that. There was never, you knew her, she knew us. And we thought that was remarkable on her part.
It takes more than an individual, it's a team. Let me just ask you then one thing about your kids and your role as a successful athlete. Sounds like a supremely healthy attitude about everything in life. Of course, everybody has challenges. How did that inform your parenting as an athlete, as a competitor, and seeing those things, whatever your children were interested in?
I think for our children, they had two parents, right? They had myself and Larry as competitive athletes, and Larry had his own successes, not only in high school. I mean, they were state champions for cross country, and he had his own accomplishments at IUP. Our children knew of those accomplishments. When we had our children, we were living in Fairfax, Virginia. So Fairfax, Virginia is a county of over 1 million people. While Larry and I may be competitors, you are in a highly competitive environment in terms of the people that you meet, and they're from all over the country. We started our children in sports when they were younger, like you typically do. Soccer was more their sport. And I think my son tried basketball, baseball. You try all the sports. Neither one of them gravitated towards running as a sport. Coach Fry used to tease that he wanted our firstborn because if I was the sprinter, Larry had the distance he wanted. That never happened. My son did not, he moved away from sports completely. And our daughter, she did soccer through high school. Both of them went to college, but neither one of them competed at college. They had other interests, other desires, and I don't think that Larry and we wanted them to be involved, but I don't think that we forced it. We did try to get our son into running in high school, but that didn't work very well. It wasn't his passion. For Larry and I, running was passion for us. We were good at it. We enjoyed it. We loved it. We liked the competition. And he and I both were very fortunate to have great coaches in high school and in college. And I think that's a big part of why we continue too, because we had really good coaches that balanced it with fun and social relationships.
You're a great survivor of the decade. Not everybody came out unscathed. You had great success. You're very grateful for everything. So it's very nice to talk with you and hear these stories. And it was very nice that you were able to talk about Coach Fry and also his wife. Coach Fry passed. Do you remember what you felt when Coach Fry? I know this could be personal, but do you want to comment on that?
Coach Fry Coach Fry was a friend. And we saw him periodically through our years after we left IUP. For personal reasons, we weren't able to be there when he passed. But I don't think there's a person who knew him that didn't realize what a great guy he just really was. Coach Fry extended himself to us in so many different ways. He played at our wedding. Mrs. Fry sang at our wedding. He did that for numerous people. It was sad that he was gone. I like social media for the standpoint of reconnecting with people. And we still see Betsy on Facebook and their son, Doug. And we knew both of Coach Fry's kids. So we still have that connection with her, which is helpful. And she still responds to all of us. So we still have that connection, even though Coach is gone. So we're lucky in that regard, too.
It's a nice story, and thank you for taking the time. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to say. I think you've done a great job of being sincere, authentic, and bringing out what all those stages meant to you. You're a fantastic athlete, but psychologically, you're an overachiever at every step. You weren't driven by the pressure. With what sounds like your career of great success, but not expectations driving you, or did you feel pressure at any point through all this? Apart from the time when you were injured and wishing things you could be back and you were healthy, did you feel pressure through an athletic career?
Anytime you get up to the starting line, I always was nervous. No matter how successful I was always nervous when I got to a starting line. I never felt, oh, I got that. I think there's always somebody out there that you don't know about who can beat you. So I just always was nervous, and I always tried to run my race. And Coach Fry, he was a stickler about that, about running your race and not getting caught up and making sure you stay on your pace and don't go out too fast because you're going to die. I have to say I did go further than I ever thought I would. And it was great. We had a wonderful time. I enjoyed it. It shaped me in so many different ways as a young adult that it's really hard to put it in a capsule. It was so much of who you were and what you did.
Thank you for taking the time. It's really fun too.
Thank you for asking me. I loved my career. I still think it's a great profession, even though I'm not working in it right now. And IUP was the best place for both things, my major and my running.
I hope you enjoyed another episode of Running in the 70s. Voices, stories, and memories of athletes who were running in the 70s. Until next time, wherever you are, keep looking forward and don't forget to look back.